YouTube? Capital G here. I'm going to do a segment you guys haven't seen in a bit. Basically, that's my tier 1 discussion. We're about a month into the new format, and I figure we now have an idea of what some of the best decks are. And I'm going to start with one of the decks that I know the best, or I know the most. And it is the deck that I actually think is the most consistent. And if I had to just pick the best deck right now, this would be the deck that I picked. I'm actually going to flip the camera around and show you guys the deck so that I can kind of show you some of the combos and why the deck is playing so well right now, so consistently, should I say.
Okay, and as you guys can plainly see, the deck that I've selected for my first of the tier 1 discussions is Blackwing. It's a deck that is very dear to me. You know, it got me my first regional top 8 back when Whirlwind was at 3. Oh man, those were good times. I started out at least 4 games with double Whirlwind. What? That bitch was so easy. Okay, so anyways, and if you watch my video on Dub-K's channel, you would know that I gave Blackwings stock down, and boy, have they made me look stupid. The reason I gave the deck stock down was because primarily every time that I've played Blackwings, when Whirlwind was at 2 and 3, that was basically the bread and butter of the deck. You would just play Whirlwind, and generally what you wanted to do was you wanted to start high with Sirocco, Shura, and Bora, and you just kind of wanted to work down the ladder, getting pluses every single turn, and using these 3 guys to make even more pluses in any other way that you possibly could. The thing about the deck now, and I guess you can basically say that the deck has become the OCG version, because with Pot of Duality's release, basically every deck, especially ones that didn't have a lot of draw support, such as Anti-Meta and Stun, and decks like that, basically just got a little more consistent. Counter Fairies would be another example too. Here's the thing about what that does for a deck that actually does have draw support, and just pretend that right here would be like a card for Black Feathers and a card, a Pot of Duality. What Pot of Duality does for a deck that already has draw support, such as Blackwings, is it's like just supercharges it. It's like giving crack to a 8-year-old or something like that, someone who's already hyper, you know. That's what it basically does. It gives the deck so much speed and so much consistency that basically the deck has almost completely switched its win condition. Blackwing, of course, used to be a deck that just was concerned about using and abusing the ladder, but now Blackwing is a much more slow-paced deck that basically just wants to use these 3 guys right here. These are the cards that you generally want to keep on the field. These are your beaters, and you basically just want to back them up with these 2 cards. Gale is not nearly as important as it was in previous formats. And what I mean was, the Blackwing deck has never been that focused on special summoning, which is why Oppression has always worked well. Even though the new cards like Black Feathers and Duality put more restrictions on the special summoning that you could do, because you could always get around it with Value and Shura, now you can't. It really doesn't matter that much, because what the deck really, again, just wants to do is it wants to keep these guys on the field and just use these to make advantage. And what I mean is, Kulut is basically always a backup. Your opponent, you know, tries to attack one of your beaters, waste their normal summon, take some damage, and if you have Shura on the field, you can make advantage off of it. And Blizzard, it's basically your just replacement for if any of your big guys die in battle, these 2 especially. You just kind of summon it, you make a level 6, and you get advantage that way. In addition to one of the reasons why Blackwing is probably the best and most consistent, I would say the second biggest reason, the first obviously being the draw support that the deck has. Whirlwind doesn't really even matter anymore. The deck doesn't even need to see Whirlwind now, because it can set up plays just exactly how it wants to, because it sees so much more of its deck. If you ever watch High Aldrich's video, his latest duel video, that's kind of how the Japanese have been playing this deck for a while, where he opened with Pot of Duality, then he played a card for Black Feathers, then he played Allure. So, I mean, when you add those 3 cards with your opening 6, I mean, think about how many cards you saw on your first turn that your opponent wouldn't if your opponent is running something like Anti-Meta and they just summon a Thunder King and set book. You know, they've only seen 6 cards. You've seen, you know, over a dozen cards. This is probably the single most important trap in this entire deck right now. And I say that because Icarus Attack has always been an amazing card, but now I feel like it's even better because it's a product of the format. What I mean is, you guys have played this format. You all know that setting a lot of back rows is very, very common. Well, Bottomless Trap Hole and Book of Moon are two of the most commonly played defensive cards in the entire game. When people summon things like Shura, Bora, or Sirocco, almost always your opponent, if they have that card, is going to use one of them, whether it be Bottomless instantly or whether you try and attack and they use Book of Moon. Well, what that does is, if your opponent has an overloaded back row, it makes it so much easier to just play Icarus Attack, target those other two cards, and you just use two cards to blow up their three. And since this card has seen just about no play this format, I was wrong on that too, man. I'm just bad predictions. Anyways, since Starlight Road has seen less and less play because of Trap Stun, it basically means that almost always, except for 7 Tools and Solemn Judgment, your Icarus plays will be very successful. And it's a play that can almost be game winning, especially if you do it through something just like value or something. It can easily win the game. And another reason why I like Blackwing so much in this format is I honestly think that they don't have a bad matchup. I'm currently using, if anybody has ever caught me on YVD, I'm currently using a quick draw variant, or actually scratch that, the Breeze variant, and I've played Blackwings 3 times and I've lost every single time because it's a terrible matchup. These guys just do too much damage to tokens. But against Glad Bees, against Stun, against Sabers, because of Effect Veiler, Sabers are no longer really a bad matchup in my opinion. But Blackwings just, they don't really have a bad matchup, to be honest. I think they've always had a competitive edge over Gladiator Beast in a direct head-to-head battle. And much like Gladiator Beast, when you have decks that move slower tempo decks that don't special summon a lock, as this deck didn't do to begin with, but with its restrictions of Duality and, of course, main deck Royal Oppression and cards for Black Feathers. Now, when you have decks that move at a slower tempo and a slower pace, a card like Solemn Warning is just a blessing in disguise for that deck as much as Duality is, because it basically allows you to say no to your opponent's most, potentially devastating thing that they would do, as far as it's a monster summon anyway. If your opponent is going to summon that JD and, you don't have any answer, well, bam, 2,000 life points, Solemn Warning is that answer. The only particular matchup that I can see for Blackwings that is a bit troublesome would probably be Gadgets, but now that the deck, most Blackwings are side decking stuff like Skill Drain or even better tech, Deck Devastation Virus, which can be used with Sirocco, anything that's been colluded or used with value when you bring out the Synchros, it just gets ridiculous. If I had to make a prediction of YCS Philly, I honestly would pick Blackwings right now. I feel like they're the most consistent deck. They don't have a bad matchup. The Gadget matchup can be a bit hard, but it's not what I would call a bad matchup. And the way that the deck plays now, it gets the most benefits by the way that the format is played. With people setting multiple back rows, it makes it easier to get advantage off Icarus Attack and Delsacro. And with cards like Pot of Duality being released, this deck benefits the most from it. It is what it is. I mean, a lot of people thought it would be other decks, but I'm sorry, it is Blackwings. It almost seems like the TCG has become the OCG. So, thank you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. And I haven't decided what my next Tier 1 discussion deck is, but I'll probably make it in a few days. Thanks for watching.